Welcome. Today we are here to have a Type 8 panel. My name is Mickey Scape-Jones, she, her pronouns, and I'm an Enneagram teacher and coach. And I will be facilitating this panel today by asking these lovely humans who all identify as an Enneagram personality type 8 about themselves and their experience of living life with that as their dominant type. So I'm going to give a little bit of an type 8 profile, and then we'll really truly broaden our understanding by hearing from these panelists who are the experts on their type. So this type, known as the protector, or sometimes the challenger or the leader, I often think of like the mama bear archetype, is motivated to protect themselves and others from vulnerability or harm. They're also understood to be motivated by being in control, maintaining power, and that is to avoid dangerous people or situations. So the type 8 believes that they can protect themselves and gain worthiness if they always show up as strong and powerful, and by not submitting to others, but by insisting on asserting their truth and strength. So this type is also known in Enneagram land as having the best bullshit meter of the types. And they will challenge leadership that they deem illegitimate or unjust or unworthy to be in that position. And it's not just to be oppositional, right? They're not just trying to create problems for those in leadership. It's really about protecting themselves and others from those who would take advantage. And so type 8s tend to focus their attention on what can be done now. So very present oriented. There is this immediacy to their action, with the most important thing being what they can choose right now. And they can have their own sense of fairness and justice and really have that ability to hyper focus on power and control and where it exists and where it doesn't exist. There can be an attitude sometimes of it's my way or the highway. Or a tendency towards excess, right? Lots of extremes with just this high life force that shows up in lots of different ways. And really, as long as they're in control of how it's expressed, that would be their preference. So type 8s can be preoccupied with protection of the underdog, at least, their understanding of who the underdog is. And they tend to face things head on instead of, just being chill and letting them play out. They often have a preoccupation with identifying their own areas of weakness and control, so that they can stay in control of those areas and controlling things, even if they might not seem controllable. Sometimes 8s report that they have a lot of energy in their bodies, and either they will kind of report this or people will perceive them as being very large. Not to say they, aren't in a small body, they can be in a small package, but they are experienced as large or presenceful. And they are also then perceived as assertive, as protective, as forceful, as strong, no matter what they're actually battling on the inside. So types 8s, their strengths are seen as being determined, courageous, like I said, protective. I think I've said that like 5 times because they are often seen that way, but also friendly, really straightforward. They're going to tell you the truth, have an intensity to them and a powerfulness to them. And they can also be very charismatic. And I think that's why people tend to both look to them as leaders and then actually they have a lot of leadership positions because they can have that charismatic, inspiring, get shit done kind of thing. But then the challenges that type 8s encounter include being exhausted from always having to fight and constantly engaging life in kind of that full throttle mode. And also, by continually denying their own weakness and vulnerability and fears, they actually harm themselves. By, not being real, by being in that superhero mode all the time. And in relationships, the 8 tendency towards control can be seen as an attack, even by their loved ones, even when it's really about their own self-protection and not about you. But we know that being in relationship means you can't always control how the relationship unfolds. So that can be a challenge. So type 8s have this original innocent state, and they are protecting their essential nature of the truth that's woven throughout the world by the world's universal goodness. And so this innocence has been covered up by the belief that the world is this hardened place, it's unsafe, it's unjust, and that those who do have power tend to use it in a bad way, and they prey on those who are weak. So as 8s learn to open up to the powerful choice of vulnerability and their power in having a more open stance to the world, they can be open to the virtues of tenderness, of interdependence, and receptivity, and they can find a different type of safety in the way of being fully human, of being vulnerable on their terms, and holding the complexities of complicated truth and vulnerability as strength, right? So that is a little bit about the glorious human beings who have this type 8 personality. And so as we think about this, I want to invite us to just a very short, just little breath meditation practice, so we can be fully present to one another and to what we're going to hear today. So I invite you now to just get comfortable where you're sitting. You don't have to close your eyes. I just like to close mine, but if you'd like to close your eyes, you can, or if you want to pick a spot on the floor straight ahead that feels good to kind of gaze at, and begin to welcome your own breath. You're already breathing, and what you're already doing is sustaining your life. And so just notice the breath that you already have. There's no need to control it or will it in a certain way. You just breathe. The breath breathes you. And we just welcome who we are to this space, welcoming the stories of these type 8s who bring a full and complete story with them. And so let's honor each of us our own complete stories, our unfolding stories. As we do that sacred work of sharing our stories and hearing one another's stories. And if it suits you, you can take a deep breath and sigh. Flutter your eyes open if they're closed. Coming back to one another in this moment. Well, I'm really glad to have the 3 of you here today to talk about what it's like to be a type 8. I have a little soft spot for 8s. I feel like y'all get a lot of the stereotyping when we talk Enneagram. And so I really love that you're going to speak for yourselves. And so my first question is really, how did you know you were a type 8? Or if you want to, you can talk about what you resonated with as you read descriptions or heard about it, or even as I talked about it. Just how did you even know that that was that type that you deeply resonated with in the Enneagram. Who wants to go first?
I'll go. TC, were you were about to speak? You
You go.
So I took the, actually, Nikki and I were in the Enneagram, Narrative Enneagram, the BIPOC invitation to learn about the Enneagram. And I think one of the things that I shared in the panel, in the training, in the session, was that I have never felt safe. I have really never just remember feeling not like I'm observing all these people. If there's more than one person in the room, I'm observing someone and saying, this person is not, they're lying, or they're this, or they're that. And I remember the thing that kind of came into my body in that moment is that you're not crazy. Like, this is a thing. And often it has led to a lot of isolation for me, because it feels heavy to always be judging, like seeing people for who they are when they don't want to be seen. And sometimes it puts me in a position to be attacked because people are expecting for me to attack them. And in my maturity, I've learned to just not say anything, but even in church, it would happen. And someone would say, I know you know something. And they would follow me, and they would pursue me for information. And I would finally say something, and then it would just go, oh my God, it would be awful. When I would say what I see, it never worked in my favor. And I said, okay, God, you're going to have to do something with them or me. I don't know what, but this feels unsafe. Why do I know this? Why do you need me to see this if there's nothing I'm supposed to do with it? But that's in the session where I think I always understood the bigness. I understood energy. I think my energy, even as a child. But what I didn't understand was this capacity for kind of insightfulness and how much truth there was built into it, and not by my own, like, I don't know these people, but just the way my body, mind, spirit brings in information and synthesizes it. I'm like, okay, I got it, but often I don't know what that means or what I'm supposed to do with it. So in the panel, in the work that we did, and especially being able to chat with you, sidebar some and things like that as a Black woman too, I was like, waking up every day in this skin and in this body, that has exacerbated a lot of my feelings of unsafeness. And because I am a person who likes to exhibit courage and bravery and deal with what's in front of me. It has made me the voice of dissent in many rooms, in political and social spaces, and that has added to the alienation. So I'll stop there.
Sharolyn, when you were talking though, like, I almost immediately had like full body chills, which is something I just would have ignored in the past. But because I lead with a type 1, so I'm on the other end of the body center. And I have spent years shoving down my, like the sensations in my body, the wisdom of my body. And so I think I was just reacting to how much you've been in touch with, even though you said kind of there at the end, like you haven't always known what to do with that, but you seem to have had this kind of connection with your body, or there were always a lot of messages coming through your body. And also the big energy, like that was a part of you understanding your type. I don't know if there's something else you want to say there, or if others will want to build on that, but that like really resonated in my own body, which I was like, oh, maybe I'm feeling a little bit of that like 8 energy that maybe you all feel all the time, which, wow, if so, that's a lot.
And that's what I'll say. I'll say it is a lot. And it is the word you used earlier, exhausting. And not by our design. Like, we're either always like running from these people who are afraid of us, explaining ourselves, or trying to avoid explaining ourselves. So Just leave me alone. If you don't bother me, I won't bother you. It's kind of, again, the mama bear. Unless you mess with my cubs, I'm just over here grazing, chilling, ain't bothering nobody.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, wait, that is such a great way to start us off. Just, remembering that how body-based this type is, and that you can't always control other people's reactions to that, Cindy, how about you? What resonated with you for type 8?
We talked a little bit before we started on origin stories, and my origin story is unique in the sense that I grew up in a very abusive household. I was given to my aunt and uncle to raise because they were barren by my mother till I was like 6 years old. Till I started preschool, I think. But I didn't discover I was an 8 till I was an adult, because I lived in a two-ness, I would say, just trying to be very perfect because I didn't want to get abused. So it wasn't until I did an Enneagram workshop with a group of friends that like colleagues and friends that I had worked with for years, who were like, "You're a 2? That doesn't sound like you." And a lot of that had to do with the bullshit meter that you were talking about, because I've always just been that person that say they're not who they say they are. Like, there's something going on here. I don't know what it is. That person is not that. Just being able to like call people out on their like double-sidedness, or just even their lack of authenticity. And so I just, over the last, I want to say 6 years, maybe less, have like come to like really lean into my 8-ness and like be okay with what that is. And a lot of that is that body connection that you were talking about, like just in my gut, knowing when something was not okay, or just like, that doesn't feel right. And so I've had those experiences a lot. And then, becoming a mom, I think has like hyper induced my 8. I don't know how else to say that, but, wanting to like protect them and like teach them to be fierce, is one thing that I work on a lot with, especially my firstborn, who is a little bit more timid and passive in his just like being, he's so tenderhearted. And so, we've been working on like his affirmation in the morning is like, I'm going to be fierce today, like, fierceness. And what does that mean to be fierce? Like a T-Rex, like, in saying what you want and what you don't want. And I think that has to do with the fact that I grew up in that sort of abusive space where I was not allowed to say my needs or what I needed, or like how to feel protected. And so, it's been an interesting journey to just sort of like come into my 8-ness and what that means. And then also I tend to be surrounded by 9s. I don't know why that is. And I don't know if anybody else has that. 8s have that, but I worked for 10 years with all 9s.
Wow.
And my boss was an 8. And then I now work with a more variety, but I tend to somehow be like surrounded by 9s a lot. So I don't know what that means, but that's been my experience.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for opening up the kind of childhood piece, right? Because our personalities are shaped by those experiences, those early experiences. When we really start to get into Enneagram work beyond just labeling our type, we understand we have this essence, right? And for 8s, it is that innocence and that connection to kind of the universal truth. But life has made you, develop ways of survival. And so sometimes I will hear people talk about how they don't like their type, or they wish they weren't their type, or whatever. And, I feel like if you can get to a point where you can see it as, first of all, you're just like really brilliant body and brain developing these survival methods, like it's incredible, and it helped you to survive to where you are today. Now, sometimes those survival ways no longer serve you, right? And so that's where we get into the work of like relaxing your type so you have more choices. But we can also be grateful and thankful and like, hey, this is what kept me alive. It's not bad. My fierceness isn't bad. It's not negative. It's not, like anything that people will tell you because they're scared of your fierceness. In fact, it protected you. And it seems like, it sounds like from what you're saying, it really did help you survive, and then it's also the gifts of it you can pass on to your children, which is really beautiful too. Yeah. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah, that's definitely also what resonated with me.
Okay.
So I had great parents. I had phenomenal, amazing parents. However, when I was 3 years old, my parents put me in the responsibility of my older brother, who was at the time only 6. And as a 6-year-old with a 3-year-old little sister, he took me into a very dangerous situation where I experienced trauma and abuse. And then no one could know about it, right? Because if anyone knew about it, not only would I have the shame of what happened, but then he would get in trouble. And that affected the dynamic of our relationship to this day. And, we're now like 15. He's 15. And so that is absolutely part of my origin story. Is this thing happened to me when I was crazy young.
Yeah.
I absolutely still remember it. And is something that I think about, not like or anything like that, but with a higher degree of frequency than any 3-year-old memory you should have. And it is why I then have always tried to protect everyone else.
Yeah.
And have control over every possible situation and be responsible for everything. I talk a lot about things that are like, what is the today problem? What's the today problem, right? Which is my immediate bias towards action, right? What are we going to solve today? And it was only much later, I call it a spiritual realignment in 2017, when a bazillion horrible things happened in a cascade where I realized I am not in control of everything. And it is only by realizing I am not in control of everything or responsible for everything that I give myself and others the freedom to be in the moments and learn from the moments that we're all supposed to be in and learn from. I have very often been accused of making other people dependent on me because I am really smart and really capable and work really hard and have a really strong work ethic. And the feedback from people I love is that means they know I can do it better, so they just don't.
Yeah.
And that becomes a downward spiral of, well, you can see all I'm carrying. Why don't you help me? And it was that moment in 2017 that caused me to have this like huge realignment and huge sort of like, okay, I'm not responsible for everything. I cannot protect everyone. I cannot solve all the problems of the world. So how do I rest in my body? Because I did not know how. I did not know how. And it's still something I continue to grow from and struggle with from time to time. But eventually my body stops. My body tells me when it's too much. And I didn't listen for a really long time, but for the past 5 years, I have learned to listen to that piece. And that's really a lot of why I resonate with type A, is I really do believe people are all inherently good. And it's just the bad things that happen to them that affect their actions. So how can I stop as many of those bad things from happening and protect those who were not capable, not because they are not, mentally capable or whatever, but were not capable to protect themselves in those moments.
Yeah. Thank you, TC. Yeah, I've had chills when all of you have I have the goosebumps when all three of you have been talking. I first thought I was an 8 and then realized some stuff with inner critic that made me realize I was a 1. But so I have a lot of deep resonance hearing you all talk. And I wonder if there's something there with the, like we always talk about it as control with 8s, but maybe it's really responsibility. Like maybe I'm actually using the wrong word, or we could just adjust it some, right? It's a sense of responsibility to protect rather than being in control.
That totally resonates with me. I am personally, irrevocably responsible for everything is the narrative that's in my brain. Yeah, that is the refrain that plays over and over and over again that I have to interrupt from time to time. It's all on you. Then Nancy, you're agreeing.
Yeah. To me, it feels like a duty. It's my duty. Yeah.
And I sort of attract people that way too.
Yeah, I resonate with all of that. And for me, I just want to say it goes back to what I was saying about because I know, and I feel like other people are either choosing not to know or not to see.
Right.
It adds to my dutifulness. It's like,
right.
Is someone going to speak up? Is someone going to protect these children? This man is not safe, or this woman is lying, or. And I'm I'm always looking around the room. I remember doing this as a child and thinking, why don't the adults know?
How don't they know? How don't they know? I feel the same way, Sharolyn. Like, why don't they know? How can they not be seeing this? It's as plain as the nose on my face.
And so that's what makes me even more adamant that it's not necessarily all about control, because as a little person, I can remember being a 6-year-old at that time when you were having an experience. And I remember thinking these thoughts and thinking, where are the adults? Where are the people who are supposed to protect us? And it wasn't about control. I didn't even know to control anything at that point. But I remember thinking, this is unsafe. Someone has to be responsible, and it doesn't make sense that it's me, but no one else seems to be paying attention.
Right.
I remember feeling that in my tiny little body. And being so very deeply confused.
And maybe that's why it is so tied to innocence, right? That essence of innocence is really so deep inside you, but it has then been buried by the need to be responsible.
And I think truly too, and I don't know how TC and Cindy have experiences, but when we have been innocent and vulnerable and tender and no one was there, like in her case, abuse happened, and in Cindy's case, abuse happened, and in my case, abuse happened. Not that who we are, we became that as a result of the abuse, but just simply attempting to be a child, be innocent, be vulnerable, and to depend on someone else and realizing, okay, I'm trying here, but nothing good is coming of it. So let me just stop this. This is unreasonable. Why would I keep looking for the adults when they're not showing up? Why would I keep expecting them to protect me? My story, if anybody's ever seen it, my movie is Matilda. Like, that's my movie. And I cried tears. I would just weep in my pillow at night, hoping for an adult. So again, when they don't show up, you just go on and work your magic and go about your business.
Yeah, I think that's also tied to our justice. Like for me, It like I am almost cannot help but speak out against it. There's like a compulsion in my body that propels me to
Like
say
fire shut up in your bones.
Mhm.
yeah, and it's
I keep poster board in my car and markers because you never know when you're going to need to show up and protest. Okay? Like, you just never know.
but I think that's part of this. So on the one hand, you know, control, but on the other hand, like this duty or like innate in like your body is reacting to something almost automatic. Because I remember this one particular situation where abuse was happening in my home and my grandmother was witnessing and I was witnessing her witnessing this abuse and she didn't do anything. And I thought, what is going on here? Like you should stop this. I mean, I didn't even know what it was that was happening, but I knew it needed to be stopped. And so I think that goes to, you know, your point about like, we rely so deeply on the folks that are supposed to be responsible. And when they don't, we just move on and decide, okay, if they're not going to do it, then I'm not going to depend on nobody and I'm going to be the one that does it. At least I think that's how it's manifested for me.
Yeah.
And I will be a good role model that you can, in fact, count on.
Mhm.
And I will not be perfect. And when I am not perfect, I will admit to you that I have messed this up. Right. But
Mhm.
I will be a
God.
better model for you than the model that formed me.
Again, taking that responsibility
Oh, yeah.
to do not just the protecting, but the like being the model.
And I don't know about you ladies, how y'all show up in the world, but one of the things I do all the time, and Nikki said this earlier, is I tell on myself before you ever get a chance to tell what I'm gonna listen. I need
Oh,
to
yeah,
let y'all
I
know.
did that. Yeah, absolutely.
There's a
100%.
video of me out here in the world somewhere. If it ever shows up, I'm just letting y'all know it's out there. Don't come to me talk crazy later. If I'm gonna be leading something in the church, I just want y'all to know I ain't been a hoe, whatever. I had a little flat hoe phase, whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm just putting it out there in case y'all won't be able to bring it up to me later that I didn't tell you. I told you, here it is.
Right. Right. You're gonna
Yes,
again.
there's a certain picture of me in college where there is a certain flag in the background that this should never have been allowed anywhere near me. Same thing. Absolutely. And
Right.
and I also often preface this, occasionally people will say, oh, you should run for office. And I'm like, I am not electable. You have no idea.
Not electable.
You know, I think I might have a wing one because I tend to be very like I tend to draw to perfect because I think of my abuse. Because if I was perfect, I wouldn't get I wouldn't get beat up. So like I think that I gravitate towards that one. But I will say I transparency and authenticity are like a big deal for me because I'm so good at like calling other people out. I will say, I don't care. As long as you're authentic with me, then we're good. Like if you can prove yourself authentic,
Yeah.
then we'll be good friends. But if I have any inkling that you aren't being truthful about who you are, it's it. There's no coming back from that.
That's the truth piece for eights, like, because again, that is about manipulation, right? It's like you really need for people to be honest with you so you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Because you're going to sniff it out anyway. I mean, it's like, it's not that we just say you have a bullshit meter. Like, I do think certain types have certain, strengths. Like that's one of, that's kind of woven into what we're talking about is those strengths. And, you really do have that kind of innate sense. And I just want to say one little thing about kind of this childhood trauma piece, because while you all have kind of that thread through of abuse, we often talk about like the childhood wound when we talk about Enneagram. And for me, that has been really helpful. Like I can look at the childhood wound and I'm like, whoa, bingo, that identifies me. But childhood wound can be perceived, like even if something didn't happen to you, if that's how you understood what happened, that's still a wound, right? Mm-hmm. If you felt abandoned by your parents, it's still a childhood wound, right? Mm-hmm. Even if they were great. Or, if it doesn't have to be a super bad thing, right? Like, cause we will sometimes like categorize what happened to us and be like, well, this was much worse for this person, or this, but I had great parents, but then this, and we'll make excuses like we should be okay. And it's like, no, we're not going to minimize.
So many people had it so much worse than I did.
Right.
I had great
And it's like,
childhood.
no, we're not going to minimize stuff. Whatever shaped you, informed you as a child is what shaped you, informed you. Right. And so it's not a contest, and it's not, you don't have to make up anything for it. And so I just want to put that out there, because sometimes people might hear this and be like, oh, but I don't remember a trauma, and then there's also things we don't remember, but it's neither here nor there. So
we're denial people also.
Right. And
people like
deny what happened to them. And they're like, well, I, deserved it, or I was, a bad kid, or what, all kinds of things. So just like, we were shaped by what we were shaped by. And we don't have to feel any shame for that. You were a child, didn't have anything to do with you, and that is part of how our personality forms. And it's also because it becomes the overarching story, right? So like when something happens, or you feel that clear sense that you're not going to get taken care of, that you're not going to be protected, you stop giving people chances. You just protect yourself. You do what needs to be done. And even if there were other people who could have protected you, that window's closed. You've learned to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And so then you become a very capable person, right? Like, and so I want to ask you all, kind of moving to the next part, to go in one of two directions. So, or you may be able to do both of them in one fell swoop, but like, I really want to talk about the strengths and the challenges of your type. Because it's like, there are strengths about being super capable and being able to walk into a room and be like, nobody's in charge here. Let me do what needs to be done. Like, that's a strength, but it can also, be a challenge, right? So what are the things you found in your type that are your strengths or challenges, and how have you navigated those?
So I'll start, and I'll say, for me, everything you said, Mickey, is 100%, like, I totally resonate with all of it. It's 100% true. One of the ways I have found that works for me is by setting very, very clear expectations about people that I'm in relationship with. And I mean, for both of us. So as an example, my husband and I, is my second husband, my husband and I have been married almost 18 years. It'll be 18 years in September. And we have what we refer to as the staying married agreement.
Okay.
It is a documented agreement that we revisit often about, like, these are my expectations of you in this relationship, and here are your expectations of me in this relationship. And we talk about it and we write it down so that it is very clear. Prior to the staying married agreement, my husband and I had been fired by 3 counselors.
Wow.
Over the course of our relationship. Do you know how hard it is to get fired by counselors?
I too have been let go by a therapist.
Right. I mean, but like,
So.
they're like, they do it different ways, but one of the ways is, of course, like, I really don't think I can help you, right? One of them is, I don't think you're equally serious about your, relationship. And one of them is, you should get divorced, right? So for me, one thing that works really, really well is establishing boundaries. And because I'm a planner, which is a different way of saying control, right? I'm a planner, and I have this like refrain in my head that is, a plan is just some thoughts until it's written down, right? It's a fantasy, right? It's a fantasy. Until it is written down. So we write it down. And ever since we have done that, which has been about 5 years, timing it back to the Great Alignment, the Great Realignment, it has made a world of difference in me going like, okay, this is not mine to be responsible for and control, but I am expecting you to actually do it, right? And to do it to a level that is the level that we have agreed is acceptable, right? That's just one piece.
Thanks, TC. I saw a lot of nodding and laughing and understanding across your faces. So Sharolyn, Cindy, what are your thoughts on like navigating your strengths and weaknesses as a type 8?
Cindy, could you go?
I'll go. I was thinking, man, I need to get a copy of that
A staying married agreement. Staying married agreement. You agreed to get married. Why wouldn't you come up with a plan for how you stay married?
I mean, this too is my second marriage, so I don't know how thematic that is in the 8s, but damn.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
And my mom was married twice, and I think anyhow, but I was thinking about something that I have been working on, because again, I can't hide my body's reaction. That's also like I can't, like I'll try to very hard in meetings or in situations to like quiet my body, because I've been in meetings where I make like a certain face almost without thinking, and they're like, what's like, Cindy, can you share what you're feeling? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to share what I'm feeling, because you don't want to hear it. Because it's harsh, but it's true. And so I think those are some things that I have I'm grateful for the 9s in my life, because they helped me be very aware of how I say things, just verbalize them, because I'm just, speaking what I think is the truth. I think it comes off as like harsh or too real. I think I've been told like you're too honest. And I'm like, but which part of it wasn't true? Like, it's not that it wasn't true. It just was too much. And so I think I have like been really hyper aware, having 9s surround me to like be very thoughtful about and mindful about how I say things, and like what to say, like which hill to die on and which not to. Because I feel like that's sometimes a challenge for an 8 too, is like everything that is not right, you can see it and you want to call it out. And I think I have learned to be more mindful about saying, now, is that something that I want to die on a hill for or not? I mean, I worked for a PWI for 10 years. I was the director of diversity and inclusion. So being tactful as well, being an 8 has been challenging, and also been like a beauty, because like I got to a certain point where I was like, I've been here so long and built up my reputation that I can literally say whatever I want in this meeting. And it's all good, because I've built all of this rapport, and people invite me to meetings because they know I'm going to ask questions, and even questions that they're too afraid to ask. And I have built relationships with allies who will ask the question for me without me having to be the one to ask it. And so I think there's a lot of beauty in that as well, of also like almost like giving or helping others see their own agency. Because I show mine, unafraid and unapologetic. So I think that has been some of the challenges. And then also not the challenge, but the beauty. And then the challenge is also, sometimes I feel like I take other people's stuff and I have to learn to like say, no, that is not about me. Even how they're reacting towards me, like it's not mine to carry, because I want to protect them or I want them to be okay. Like I have to also just say, no, I can't. I've done too much work to deal with my own stuff that I can't now also try to take yours to do something with it, because I see that you're feeling. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Those things.
Yeah, that protection instinct can lead you to protecting people who aren't interested in your protection.
Right.
So then it's like, what is this about? Is this about me? Now I'm feeling like And so how to check your own ego around that. So you're not just out here trying to save everybody who's like, I'm fine. Or maybe they're not fine, but it's their work to do.
Right.
Get where you need to go. But if you swoop in and save them, then it just becomes, you know, something between the two of you that wasn't, you know, was never your intention.
Right. And I have to call myself out and say, you're not the rescuer. Like, this is, so I have to also call myself out on my own bullshit to say, like, that's not your place. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you know, also checking me in that. So,
yeah,
sometimes I do that easier on some days than others.
Yeah. Because if you're hyper attuned to your own potential weakness or vulnerability, like, are you tuning into what you're judging as weakness or vulnerability with other people? And maybe it's not weakness or vulnerability to them, or it is even, and it's still not your responsibility that they're vulnerable in this way, right? Like,
Right.
like sussing all that out is really doing that personal work of like, how much, like you said, is about me and how much is about them, you know? Ooh, yeah, that's a lot.
Cindy,
Sharolyn?
let me just tell you something I've done really quickly, because that whole like your face telling everyone how you're feeling in every meeting is something I have struggled with a lot. And I'm in a lot of meetings. So like I actually write, if I get in a room and I'm the first one in the room, or whether it's a Zoom room or whatever, I will write down, what is my role in this meeting? Like, is my role in this meeting to ask the tough questions? Is my role in this meeting just to listen and be informed? Is my role in this meeting to poke at it and figure out all the holes in the thing? And by setting that boundary for myself, I do a better job of supporting the people who have invited me there to help them in some way, right? Because I generally, but if I don't do that, my natural reaction is to always be right, like it is right now. How can I help you? How can I help you?
That's a great practical tip. That is really good.
That was really good. Thank you.
And something I feel like any type could learn from, because and every type is going to insert their flavor, right? Their thing that they do, right? I'm going to try and fix something in a meeting. So checking myself and be like, have I been asked here to fix the things, to look for all the things that are wrong and fix them? If not, I'm gonna sit here and be quiet and do my job.
Yeah.
And not offer to fix things. So like I recently heard a quote that I've just been repeating everywhere. And I always get the person's name wrong, but it is James Schramko, I think. And it says, if you're always putting out fires, then you're the arsonist. I was like, could you not step on my neck, please?
Fair.
Right? So sometimes you gotta like check yourself a little bit, see if you've got matches in your hand, you know? Sharolyn, what are you thinking?
All the things. Okay, but I'm going to answer it as directly as I am able.
Okay.
So there is, and I'm gonna be poetic. I'm gonna say, because my charming is disarming, there is a fire waiting to happen in that statement. Because I get invited in rooms a lot of times because I'm a Southern woman. I'm an older woman, and I'm a nurturing person. And then all of those things that got me in the room now Sharolyn is in the room. And the same people, you know, because I'm dressed so cute, you know, I've just got my little heels on, and they expect like respectability politics. And to me, that's part of the bullshit I cannot do. I don't care if Junior don't pull up his pants. I don't give 0 F's about his pants. And Shaniqua's ass and titties out. Like, I'm like, go for it, Shaniqua. I wish I could do it, honey. Go for it. So the charming, well put together, you know, the woman, you know, it's misleading. It's like I'm a whole gangster under all of this. And it is because of that mama bear. Like the fighter in me is never not present. I did a workshop yesterday, a women's symposium. And one of the things that I said, and this is like how I feel all the time. People have made me fight, and then they were mad that I became a warrior.
That's
Like you keep pushing me. I'm sitting over here trying to be quiet. I'm trying to mind my own business. What they don't know is I got a Glock in the car. I mean, I'm always ready.
Yeah.
Because even going back to being 6, I kept feeling like, do people like see me as like what I will be when I'm older? Is that why they're attacking me and I'm 6? Like, it is like, what is my energy doing to these people even now? So I will say, so those two things, that's my, I'm answering what is wonderful, and then what is, so the strength is also showing up is the challenge. This charming, charismatic person who is likable. I didn't show up to be your friend. I didn't. I'm not looking for any new friends, like go on with all of that. And people are confused. I'm like, well, what made you think I wanted to make friends with you? I literally went to a church one time I was asked to come and lead prayer for this fellowship. I got down, and one of the armor bearer for the first lady came up to me. And I just sensed that the Lord is going to connect us. And I was like, hey. All up in the church. I was like, God ain't told you that. In front of her first lady. I was like, God did not tell you that. I'm not finna do that. In fact, I'm done praying. I'm gonna go over here, get me a sandwich. And they were like,
yeah.
Now, while I was praying, I was all under the anointing. I was, and probably very sweet and humble, because that's me talking to God, not you. But what I have for you is just some whole unfiltered truth. Like, now, sugar, you got that wrong. And I'm not finna play. I'm not finna pretend. I'm not finna.
Yeah.
And you can go on with all of that. So that's it.
Yeah.
And because I really don't care, it's hard. It's like, I'm still smiling and I ain't mad at you. I don't even feel a way about it.
Yeah.
But now you mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
You lied. I ain't lied.
So I think that's the thing, is like 8s are so charismatic and very personable. Because again, you have so much life force. So people are drawn to your life force and to you as like a very like life of the party. You often know a lot of people, like, you know what I'm saying? Very friendly, and like you're good with people. And like, but business is business.
Yeah.
And it's like, because, so I came to this realization about 8s recently, because I'm doing my work, and I'm wondering this about 8s. So there are types, and I think 1s can be one of them, because what we tend to be very formal. So my emails are very formal, and I will often edit them. Like, I don't just and send. I'm like, I write it, and then I look over it, and then I'll change things. And I'm like, because I can also be very formal, I can be very direct. So I'll go back and I'll add like some nice things, like, hey, how you doing? I hope the weather, blah, 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 because it's the right thing to do, not because I actually necessarily mean it, right? I'm like following protocol because that's how I'm wired, right? And I thought the other day, having, been in contact with all of you, like, I wonder if that's irritating to 8s, because I experience emails often from type 8s, short, concise, to the point. You will like, very rarely is there fluff. And it's like, help, here's what you need to do. And here, like, just boom, boom, boom. Right. So I'm like, ooh, dude, I wonder if I'm emailing an 8, should I just cut it short?
Because you and I have recently been in communication on a business thing, I want to share something with you.
Yes, please. I'm trying to learn.
Okay, so no. This is going to be, so it's kind of the non-duality kind of thing. It's like showing up in the moment. So it's When you and I were communicating and I was saying, hey, Nikki, you know, I love you, how you do your thing. Then will you come and do your thing and do the thing and and here's the benefits of the thing. But then you notice there was a transition.
Yeah.
Fill this out, send me this. So when I make that transition from like, okay, now we know each other, that's established. When it comes to and even when I sent you the follow-up email, I was like, okay, this is what you promised me.
Boom,
This
boom,
is what
boom.
you said. Go back and do that, and then come talk to me. So it's both. It's very hard to be authentic, and so we don't want to act like we don't care how your day was.
Yeah.
We don't want to skip over that you told us that you were having surgery on Thursday just because we got some business we need you to attend to, or that you were getting married, or you got a new cat. We want to honor all of who you are while also honoring our need.
Yeah.
And so it's not either or, it's both and. And here's what you have to kind of pay attention to is that shift.
Yeah.
Like one of my girlfriends told me, this is yesterday, she said at this symposium, she said, I need to work with you again. She said, but she brought me a folder with all of her follow-up stuff in it. And she said, I know I can't talk to you about anything else until I do my homework. I said, we've been friends for 6 years. I was like, she finally gets it. Don't come and ask me for anything new. If we've talked about 9 different things and I don't get an update that you have check, list, check, something, baby, get out of my face. Because you will not waste my time.
It's that, okay, have y'all seen Homecoming? It's that Beyonce energy when she's like, I don't see the point in giving you any more notes. Act on the notes I've given you. And she gets up and walks away and Jay-Z's just like, follows her.
That's it. We do not pretend that, you know, and I like what I think TC and Cindy both have alluded to this in many ways. Like, I'm divorcee and I'm saying, you know, I think I'm good with that. I don't have to do that again. I might, but I definitely don't have to. But again, if I'm telling you over and over again, I give you like, these are the things that bring me joy. These are the things that piss me off. And what I told my last ex was, I have given you the keys to the kingdom and you refuse to use them.
Yeah.
The keys to the kingdom, because I will be as tender and as vulnerable, but I have to be able to trust you. And you can't keep showing up, violating all of my boundaries, and then asking me like, what's the problem? Why I can't get no and why I can't why? Well, you.
Yep.
That's so interesting, and I love that, like dual, like there's that they're like both end, right? It's like when people ask me like, you know, what are you first, like Latina or, you know, Christian? I wouldn't identify myself as a Christian anymore, but when I did, I was like, they're not separate entities. It's like together, they're integrated. I don't even know how to answer that question. But I also, in an email, if I pay attention to details. So if you share something personal with me, I'll make sure to bring it up in an authentic way. But I do tend to have emails that are straight to the point if I don't know you. Like if it's just business and we're just business, then I'm just going to go straight for it. And I have had other colleagues check my emails before I send it to somebody because they're not personable and they're like, you have to like say something like, you know, and I'm like, so my standards, like, you know, how are you? I hope you're well. And like something about the weather is like my go because like it's so inauthentic to me, but I feel otherwise the email feels very like just, you know, not personal. Unless I know you, then there's like, hey, you know, I remember you said your mom was not feeling well, or, you know, I'll follow up with a colleague. And the same token, I don't do well with small talk. I don't like small talk at all for the same reasons. It feels inauthentic. It feels ingenuine. I'm just like, you do not want to talk to me and I do not want to talk to you. So like, let's just not do this, you know?
Right,
So,
right.
so I think sometimes people assume things about me because I'm an 8 and I'm an extrovert, that I like certain things, like small talk, like being in certain settings when I don't. Like recently I was asked if I would serve as at our church, our pastor retired and they're looking for a pastor. And I love to preach. Like I've been preaching on their preaching schedule, similar to the story about the prayer, Sharolyn. And they asked me if I would consider being their lead pastor. And I was like, no, not at all. I didn't even bat an eye. I was like, no, because I don't do well like that with people, like pastoral care. And like, it's just because I don't think, because of my meter, I just was like, I'm going to hurt someone's feelings and I don't want to hurt their feelings because that's not my intent. My intent is not to harm. I believe intrinsically we are good, like ontologically we are good. Like, I believe all of those things, but I know I would be a terrible pastor because of pastoral care. But I am like, I could preach. Let me preach. I will be.
Let me preach and then let me get out the back door.
Right.
Like y'all go on and love on each other and let me go regroup in the car.
Yeah. Right. Like after church and we have to do like the little reception mixer, like that's all me pretending.
Yeah.
Because I don't like doing it. I just, I'd rather, somebody come up to me and I sit with them and we have like a genuine conversation over coffee or over drinks at some other point. But so I don't know if, that sort of falls in line with your question about like, I'd rather you be direct with me than anything.
Yeah.
That's always my default.
Yeah. You give directness and you appreciate directness.
Yeah.
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 Can I say one more thing about the email and the thing? I think this will help everybody. I'm doing a TC and we I'm gonna give y'all a pointer because I wanted to. So one of the ways that I am most authentic, and so to Cindy's point, I don't like small talk. So I'm not. What I do for every person that I communicate with, if they are worth me having a conversation with, I do a little research. And I may say something like, loved your most recent podcast on so-and-so, so-and-so, but I've actually watched it now. That's the thing.
Yes.
It depends on what it is. Or I'll say, congratulations on your Woman of the Whatever award. I'm not going to talk about the weather. That feels way too disingenuous for me.
Yeah.
I can't even pretend. I have a client, I'll go back and read your last email. If they are personable, I'll say, okay, so you mentioned that your sister was having surgery. How is she? And I do care about that, right? Yeah. So I will do a little smidge, just a little smidge. I may peruse their website and say, oh, I see that you're offering a new blah, 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 blah. Something like that. So it's just kind of a little like, I see you. So my saubono. So that's me kind of showing up, being present for people, seeing them, and not just like in this transactional type of way. Just because it's business does not mean there isn't some part of it that I care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I said, I think that, and I will tell you this, for all of you, if you're consulting and doing business with people love that you pay attention to what they have going on. Sometimes they have forgotten what they have going on.
Yeah. It's true.
And so I've gotten new contracts by that. People will say, oh, her attention to detail is so great. But again, it's a strategy for me. It's a tactic for engagement. And I use it thoughtfully. I try. And I use it consistently.
Yeah.
So the only thing I want to add to anything anyone said here, because it's all been amazing, it's honestly been fantastic talking to both of you ladies, is that I have been told pretty much my entire life that I am intimidating. And so, yeah. and so an email in particular, one of the strategies or tactics that I use to try and sort of diffuse the bomb of you are intimidating is I try to talk in stories in emails, because we all live in stories.
Yeah.
We don't live in bullet points. and we don't live in, like this one episode, right? Like we all live in a story. So I tend to provide a lot of context in emails, like here is the situation, here is what I'm asking you to do about it. And then I make it very clear what the action is that I'm requesting, because I have that bias towards action. But this, Sharolyn, for me, is 100% a strategy I developed to counteract the perception of other people that, oh, she can't be bothered. She's intimidating, right? Like, but, I'm also kind of in sales. So.
Yeah,
right.
and I can see you having
people
to
buy.
soften. Yeah, but I am a Jedi practitioner. I am a social justice
I love that.
centered consultant. And so I am eliminating all of the bullshit in our exchange. I talk to people the way I'm going to treat them, because I don't want to be surprised. I don't want them to be surprised later.
Right.
I got an email from a guy who I was doing a very short-term DEI consultation with over 3 articles. You may know him, Mickey. His name's Sean, philanthropist. And he said, when he sent me the RFP, I basically copied it, pasted it, and edited it to say, here's what I understand you're looking for. You want bloop. And it was like 4 words of all of his 9 paragraphs. It was like, here's what you're expecting. Here's what you are paying. Here is what the terms, and he was like, oh my God, I love this.
Yes.
But that is how you're going to get your information going forward. When I did my follow-up with that agreement, I said, based on our agreement, but I've exceeded all of your expectations. I got a bonus out of the gig, because I was like, here's what you asked for. Here's what I delivered. Here's a quote from what you said about what I did. Yeah. And I was like, in the spirit of equity, hey, if y'all could up that money, that'd be great.
Question.
Because
I think I want to glean as much wisdom as I can. So I have a question about, and because I feel like in a government kind of corporate context. So I feel like sometimes I know that I can't do that because it's perceived as like not corporate or not, like I feel like I'm asked to add fluff, and I have sort of like molded myself into that lingo or those values or those as a way, like I don't want to be transactional, but I also feel like sometimes when I write something, it's very short, right? Like it's straight to the point. I'm like, I don't understand how I can add more to this to make it say more than what I already want it to say. But then it goes, to another colleague or to my boss, and they add all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand what the purpose of that was, but like, you're my boss. So, so I feel like sometimes I'm stuck in this space.
And I want to ask this to everybody, including Nikki, but especially Nikki, as our facilitator and supporter and coach in this space. So when we go back to this either or way of being, and we know that it doesn't feel authentic, what is our belief, like that we should kind of placate, that we should kind of yield to the status quo, because it's almost impossible for us. And what I'm learning, I'll be 55 in 1 month. It is not sustainable. And because it is not sustainable, it feels so inauthentic to even go down that path. I just have to establish for people, even when I make new friends, which is rare, I will say, please don't expect for me to call you every day. I love you. If there's anything you need, if you call me and you're in a crisis, I will pack the Glock, a lunch, whatever else I need to pack, and I have got you, okay?
Yeah.
But if you message me or call me every day, I don't want you to be disappointed, but I do want you to know how I operate.
Yeah.
And so I say that because I will tell you, I can't do all that little shit in between. I cannot do it. But anytime you need me or ask of my time, I will put it on yes, my friends are required to use my calendar. I'm sorry. But this, if you want me, and it's not an ultimatum. I'm saying, I miss you. I have a calendar date with my bestie the first Sunday of every month because I do miss you. I want to spend time with you. You busy, I'm busy. You run a whole company.
Mhm.
So I just would say that, when we're given these kind of like, this is the status quo, whether it's corporate, I left corporate America because it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't do it. I was miserable and dying on the inside.
Mhm.
But in spaces, corporate, government, however they are, because this is, if the rule was you had to let somebody fill on your, I won't be, she's recording now, so I can't, if the rule was that you had to let somebody touch you inappropriately every morning in order to enter your office, my question would be, would that be how you would like to show up?
Mhm.
This is about agency. I even teach my clients, because I'm a coach, just a different kind of coach than Mickey. I say to them, what does self-advocacy look like for you?
Mhm.
This is me self-advocating. It is not sustainable. It adds to my exhaustion. I cannot keep it up. It feels too much like pretending.
Mhm.
And it was killing me.
Yeah.
Stifling me.
Yeah.
And I will not do it. And so I don't know about y'all. So the question is like, how do you show up in that? How do you even, you just like go on vacation and try to recoup and come back and start again? Like what? I don't know, because I can't do it.
That is how some people do it.
I'll talk about it from my perspective. Like, I really do believe that how you change any environment is by first convincing other people that you understand it. So being aware of the culture of your organization or whatever type of organization you're a part of, and being able to very clearly articulate, this is how we work, and tell the story of that culture from with your voice, then has given me a lot of credibility to then be able to say, and this is why that doesn't work for some people. And this is why it doesn't work for this specific group of people. And this is why it wouldn't work for you if you were in that group. And it's only by first establishing, I understand it, because I have I put a lot of value on competency. Like, I need to know, your job in order to work for you, right? And so if I can demonstrate, I am very confident and aware of how this works, and then I can bring it down to a personal level of, and this is why that's not optimal, and this is why in particular it's not optimal for this particular group. And if you were in that group, you would want it to change. I have found that to work very well for actually enacting and igniting change. But for me, I have to prove I understand it first, which means a lot of observation, a lot of question, and a lot of like holding myself back at first. Because of course I know it was bullshit the second I walked in the room. Right?
Yeah.
I knew after the third sentence came out of the person's mouth that this was going to be causing this outcome. But if it's only by first demonstrating I understand it, and then personalizing it to different individuals, that I build, and this is a word I'm going to use, I build the followership that I need to actually create the movement towards the change. Not just saying, I'm the leader and I know this is what we need to do to make it better, but let's all do this to make it better.
Yeah.
But if I don't prove to you I'm a part of that culture, like, and I understand it, you'll never follow me to the better place we need to go.
Yeah, well, so I can jump in as like give you an Enneagram, both systems perspective. And one of the things that I think we're kind of seeing in this moment, which is really interesting, is like, we haven't even gotten into your wings, your instincts, your all of that stuff, right? So we talk about instinct stacks, right? Having social, sexual, or self-preservation instincts. That's going to totally like really fill out how your Enneagram number kind of manifests. And plus, you know, wings, like, you know, where you kind of pull from there. We also have these resource numbers, the numbers you go to, right? And where you can pull some resources from there. So you're all going to show up differently, even though you all have the same home type. So how you like that even might go back to these strategies. You all were talking about different strategies you've adopted. And some of that may be because of not just the lead instinct, but the instinct stack, right? So it'd be, I mean, that's a whole nother like panel to talk about that. And then you have the systems perspective, because you mentioned, Cindy, that most of your team, well, now you said you're in the more diverse team, right? Okay. So depending on what your team, like, you might still have a cluster, like maybe most are head types or most are heart types, or right? So like, depending on what's leading in the general team, this is where it can be really helpful to work with the Enneagram as a team, because there could, or like really powerful bosses or whatever, right? They may be swinging things a certain way. Just for example, if you do have a 9 as a boss or lots of 9s, right? They are real, we're not going to rock the boat. Just no, keep everything as calm and gentle. We are not, you know, so if they think, well, this is how communication works and we're just not going to rock the boat, they're asking you to then not rock the boat, even though like your middle name is Boat Rocker. So like, you know, I do think finding out a way that you can negotiate that feels true to you, because truth and honesty is so important to who you are at your core. And not having to deny that pure one that is inside of you, that essence, that you will eventually buck the system if you can't be true to that. And so how do you then figure out what works for you, or else you will explode, right? So like, whether that's saying, look, this, I communicate in this way, and this is how I'm going to give it to you. And then the team can add the fluff, but I don't add fluff. It's not what I do, right? Or if, you know, it's, you know, some other arrangement, I don't know, there could be another arrangement that would work for you. But you have to figure out that arrangement. So you know, so that it's true to you, right? Like, and that's part of that, again, that work of like, how are the ways I strategize and navigate? Because denying yourself or squishing yourself into something only works for so long. And then, you know, you're going to let them have it at some point, or let somebody else have it at some point, right? We ended up taking it out on other people that are closer to us.
True.
Because they're not costing our paycheck, and that's not fair to them either, right? So yeah, I hear you, and I hear a lot of strategizing, which is amazing. I think that's another thing that people don't always at first associate with 8s, but they're, you know, that strategy mind, because again, you've had to figure out strategies for survival. And part of the way you show up as leaders is that you are able to read a room and read all the things you have to negotiate. And then you jump into action. You're not just going to be thinking about it forever. You are going to have an action plan. And so, you know, that also could be what's bothering you if you feel like you don't have an action plan, because that's how you are wired, is to do something actionable now. So you can only sit around for so long, and that will be the end of that. So I know I have kept you all over time, and I'm so thankful for your generosity. And I do want to ask one other little thing, and that's because I find it so valuable. This is something that I've been learning from, and I think people can really learn from, is how can we best love a type 8? What is even just one thing that somebody can do to be loving to you, demonstrate love to you? Like, how can we, who are not H show up for you in a loving way?
Oh man.
I'll try to answer this question, because I have been asked a version of this question several times, you know, and it's appreciation is not the answer. It is taking something off my plate without me asking you to do it.
Okay.
And for me anyway, I had one boss who explained it to me like this. He's like, the only way I have ever found to show you how much I appreciate you is by taking the thing you hate the most off your plate and making sure it gets done by someone who is as competent as you are. He also said to me, you're the only person I know who likes insults as compliments. So one of the highest compliments that you can pay me is say, TC, you're the shit. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I believe that. But it isn't asking me how you can help me. Asking me how you can help me makes me crazy.
Oh,
Just take the thing you know I hate to freaking do and do it.
Okay.
That's the best answer I got.
Okay. Thank you. Who else has something on how we can love you?
Okay. I think mine is simple. The thing that my girlfriend did, she made an appointment, she paid for her session, and she brought her homework. That paid me the highest honor. I felt seen and understood. And to not have to say that to her made me more able to show up for her in a loving and compassionate way. When she demonstrated a weakness, I didn't, you know, I was just very tender and very warm because I felt like she had cared for me. All of the effort that I had put into helping her build her business, it felt, as TC said, I felt appreciated by her because she did her homework. That's really all I want. Do what you say you're gonna do. Don't make me have to keep repeating myself.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna beg. So what I'm gonna do is be done. And so once I've said it, I may give you a second time, but on that third go round, unfriend, block, delete in real life, like not a Facebook situation. Like, don't call me. I said to a friend who became a client, he kept asking me stuff. I was telling him the answers. And he refused to pay me. And then he continued with this cycle of asking. And I said this was my quote, I have no more words. And he kept, and I was just like, I told a friend, I was like, he apparently didn't understand what it means when I say I have no more words. I wasn't gonna text you, I wasn't gonna call you. You can call, leave as many messages as you want. I'm done. Especially when you tell me I'm not worthy after I've given you a substantial discount. You say that's too much. I don't have anything else for you.
Yeah. So do what you say you're gonna do.
Do what you say you're gonna do and make the effort to use if you've asked me for anything, I don't care if it's to borrow an outfit or, you know, use the thing with honor. Like, don't be trifling. That offends us. I don't know all eights, but it definitely offends me. Don't misuse. Don't quote something and act like, you know, well, whatever, and you're not paying attention. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, the language you use, this is me. This is us. You're my friend. I trust you. Steward that information. That's where I land every single time.
Yeah, that sits deeply with me, that idea of do what you say you're going to do. Like I think for sure that's a way to love me, is to say, if you say you're going to do something and you don't follow through, it's very hard for me to like, you've definitely shifted in a level of my friendship, or even how I see you or value you. It's really, really hard, because I always follow through. And so I think that's definitely, so I think maybe just a combination of what you ladies both share, because I was thinking of my husband, and I'm the default parent in our life. And that also means that I carry all of the knowledge of everything of our children, all of it, all of their allergies, all of their everything. And I mean, that's part of the challenge of being an 8, right? But when he does something that I normally do without like expecting him to do it, that to me is like the best. Like it just gives me like all the loves and feels of like, oh, you offered to take him to his doctor's appointment without me having to tell you, or you took them for the evening so that I can have a break. Like those kinds of ways, I think are love to me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, all of you. I gained so much insight, and you all win the prize for so far my longest panel. I may split it up into 2 because I'm fine with that, because I guess every type is equally stereotyped, but I feel like there's a way that 8s are stereotyped and then are not listened to. And so I really think it's important for you all to have the time to share a depth and breadth of who you really are. And so thank you for sharing that with me so that I can learn, so I can be a better Enneagram teacher and coach. And it just creates more understanding in the world. So I really appreciate your time and your honesty and even your vulnerability. So, thank you.